All right, guys. 9.7, part 2, completing the square. So, if you noticed when we were doing the equations of circles, we had two sets of perfect square binomials. Okay, so what a perfect square binomial is what these are right here. X plus 1 squared. Meaning, you have two binomials that are exactly the same. Because remember, x plus 1 squared, that's technically x plus 1 times x plus 1. Y minus 3 squared is y minus 3 times y minus 3, and so on and so forth. But a lot of times when we're doing equations of circles, we're not going to have these nice little binomials given to us. Okay? So in order, and you'll see kind of when we get the examples after I show you how to complete the square, what I'm talking about. So in order to get the equation of a circle, a lot of times you have to do what's called completing the square, or make the equation into a perfect square binomial. So here's what I mean. Let's say you have x squared minus 6x, x squared minus 6x, but there's nothing else attached to it. And I want to turn it into something like this, or this, or this right here. So here's what you got to do. We first have to remember that a trinomial has coefficients of a, b, and c. So we're going back to algebra 1 here. The a is attached to the squared term, the b is attached to the variable to the first power, and the c is our constant. Okay? So notice what we're missing from this is a constant in order to be able to factor it to get it to this right here. So here's the steps. First, identify your a, b, and your c. So my a is 1, my b is -6, and my c is unknown. Now, for all the problems we're going to do in this class, our a is always going to be 1. When you go to Algebra 2 and Algebra 2 Trig, you'll be doing problems like this where your a is not 1. And you have to kind of do the work to get there. So the first step is whatever your b is, you're going to divide that by 2. So our b is -6. So I'm going to do -6 divided by 2, and I get -3. Okay, so that's step 1. I guess technically it's step 2 after you identify what a, b, and c are, but it's going to be, that part's going to be easy. So the b is whatever the coefficient is with the sign attached to your single variable term, not squared. This one right here. So take your b and divide it by 2. So in this case we get -3. Then you're going to square the number from step 1. So in this case, the number we got from step 1 was -3. So we're going to do -3 squared, and that gets us 9. Okay, this number is important. We take the number from step 2, and we add it on to our c. So the c is the number you get from step 2. So then we're going to plug the c in where it goes in this equation right here. So add the c onto this equation. So now we get x squared minus 6x plus 9. The final step to getting it to look like one of these guys is factoring. Okay, so remember, when you factor a trinomial, I'm looking with a coefficient of 1, that imaginary 1, I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to my c, and the same two numbers have to add to my b. All right? So remember, some of you guys probably do it like this, where it's like -6 and 9. Two numbers that multiply to this, add to this. In this case, it's -3 and -3. So then I factor it, and that becomes x minus 3 times x minus 3, which I can simplify into a perfect square binomial. And then I am done. So in this case, this would be our h, at 3, right there. Okay. So let's do a couple more examples of just completing the square where we're just given this simple stuff right here. Okay? So my b is -10. So step 1 is I'm going to do -10 divided by 2. That gets me -5. Step 2, I square that number. So -5 squared gets me 25. Step 3, identify the 25 as your c. Step 4, plug it back onto my equation, x squared minus 10x plus 25. Step 5, factor that puppy out and get your perfect square binomial. Two numbers that multiply 25, add the negative 10, are negative 5 and negative 5. Done. Little hint, the number you get from step 1 is the number that goes in right here. Okay? Notice negative 3, negative 3. Okay? Let's do another one. My b is 16. Step 1, divide my b by 2. Gets 8. Step 2, square it. 8 squared, 64. Step 3, my c is 64. Step 4, plug it back in. X squared plus 16x plus 64. Step 5, factor it up. Remember, it's going to be this two numbers that multiply 64, add to 16, 8 and 8. X plus 8, x plus 8. So that becomes x plus 8 squared. So how does this work when we are trying to find the equation of a circle? I'm glad you asked, because now we're going to get into it. So let's say we got this guy right here. So we've got x squared plus y squared minus 8x plus 2y equals negative 8. And our goal is to put it in a standard form where we want to get that to look like this. X minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. Okay? So the first thing I want to do is I want to get the x's and the y's together. So I'm now going to put x squared minus 8x plus y squared plus 2y equals negative 8. Now I'm going to leave this negative 8 all by itself. Now if there was a number that didn't have a variable on the left hand side, I would add or subtract it, whatever the algebra needed, to get it over here. So the left, I only want terms that have variables attached to them. Okay? Now for each variable, my x's and my y's, I have to complete the square for both of them. Okay? So here's how this works. I'm going to take my b for my x, which is negative 8. I'm going to divide it by 2. So negative 8 divided by 2 is 4, negative 4. Then I'm going to square that. My c is 16. I'm going to add it back onto my equation. And here's where this is a little bit different than we previously did this. Whatever I add to this, I have to add up here, and I have to add to the right. Because whatever I do to the left, I have to do to the right. Okay? I then am going to factor this. Two things that multiply to 16, add to negative 8. Remember, from whatever you get from step 1, that should be the same number. So I get x plus 4 squared. So that is the first part. Where do I want to write that? I want to write that over here. Okay? Now I need to complete the square for my y. So for my y, my b is 2. I'm going to divide that number by 2. So I get 1. I'm going to square it, which is still 1. So my c is 1. I'm going to add it on. X squared, not x squared, y squared plus 2y plus 1. But whatever I add there, I have to add up here. So plus 1. And then for my fifth step, two things that multiply to 1, add to 2, 1 and 1. So y plus 1 y plus 1, which becomes y plus 1 squared. So then this becomes y plus 1 squared equals, and then the last step is I'm going to combine these terms. Negative 8 plus 16 is 8, plus 1 is 9. So now I have my equation of my circle. So I completed the square for the x and the y. Whatever I added to the left has to also get added to the right. So now the equation of my circle is x plus 4 squared plus y plus 1 squared equals 9. So the center of my circle is at negative 4, negative 1, and it has a radius of 3. Let's do another one. Okay, so notice now that the 40 is on the left. So I'm going to get that 40 to the right. So I'm going to rewrite my equation in the correct order. I'm going to leave spaces for everything I'm going to add in. So x squared plus 8x plus that c I'm going to add in plus y squared minus 14y plus the c for the y. And I'm moving the 40 to the left, so I'm going to subtract 40. I had to subtract it from both sides. Okay. So now let's complete the square for our x's. I'm going to not put the steps in this time. Step 1 is know my b is 8, so 8 divided by 2 is 4. And I'll put the steps in. Step 2 is square it. Step 3 is knowing my c is 16. Step 4, adding it on to my original equation. So I'm going to add it here, and I'm going to add it here. And then step 5 is factoring. Should be 4 and 4. Two things that multiply 16, add to 8. X plus 4, which becomes x plus 4 squared. Let me go ahead and put that down at the bottom. Okay. Let's complete the square for the y's now. Step 1, my b is negative 14. I'm going to divide that by 2. I get negative 7. Step 2, square that. Get 49. Recognize that my c is 49. Add it on to my equation. Keep wanting to write y squared. Y squared minus 14y plus 49. 49 goes here, plus 49 goes here. Factor. Two things that multiply 49, add to negative 14. Negative 7 and negative 7. So that becomes y minus 7 squared. So plus y minus 7 squared. And then adding up over here, negative 40 plus 16 plus 49. That gets us 25. So there's the equation of our circle. Our circle has a center at negative 4, 7 with a radius of 5. Okay. Let's maybe do a couple more because I know that this might be a little confusing. Okay. So last one. Let's rearrange so that everything's together. X squared minus 12x plus, leave a space for your c. Y squared plus 18y, leave a space for your c, equals, bring the 5 over to the right. Since it's negative 5, it becomes positive 5 on our right. Step 1, divide by 2. Step 2, square it. That's my c. Add my c back in. So x squared minus 12y plus 36. 36 goes here. Add my 36 on the right. And then factor. It's negative 6 and negative 6. So I have x minus 6 squared so far. Complete the square for my y. 18 is my b. Divide it by 2. Square it. State that my b is 81, or my c is 81. Add it back on. It adds here, and it adds here. The top on the right. And then finally, factor it. It's going to be 9 and 9. Multiply to 81, add to 18. And then the last step is 5 plus 36 plus 81 gets us 122. So the center of our circle is at 6, -9. And we have a radius of square root of 122 is 5 plus 36, 122. Can we divide that by, can we simplify it? 122 divided by 16. We'll just leave it as radical 122. I don't think you can simplify that radical. I think it has to just stay like that. And that's it. All right. Here for your questions. Here for if you need help.